Hello. Thank
Hello.
you for having me.
It's my pleasure.
I uh I'm glad we were able to get the technology to work.
Same here. After the schedule issues that we had, but of course, we're both new dads, so
Yes,
that that sort of has something to do with it. And how old is it Delilah? Is that right?
Tallulah. Delilah is that's a whole other story. I believe that's a song
Yes.
that
Yeah.
I have nothing to do with, but I understand some millennials enjoy it. Our daughter's name is Tallulah,
Forgive me.
and she's 3 months old and she's thriving.
Fantastic. Yeah, our guy Peter is 6 months old, thriving and also making a lot more noises than he used to. So that's something interesting to get used to. Is Tallulah named after the Bugsy Malone song by any chance?
No, it's a very strange thing. We didn't really have a name in mind, and the baby came out, and we're at the hospital, and and literally she picked her own name. We were just like Tallulah. And I turned to my wife. She's like, "Oh yeah, Tallulah," and that I don't know where it came from, but there's kind of no story to it. Just she literally picked her own name.
That's great. She's a self-starter, and
She is, yeah.
that's what we like in
Yeah,
this
she's right.
business.
She's
That's
the
what you got to be these
most
days.
she's the most determined person I've met in my life ever.
Yeah, that's a wild thing
It's
that I've
wild.
noticed with Peter as well. Just the little things like I'm going to get that thing hanging off of the thing, and he's going to get it for sure. And it takes him a while, but he's going
Yeah,
to get it. He's into this stage now where he's holding his feet. He loves to hold his feet. It's like a
that's
it. Do you know it's a
so
wild?
cute.
It's super cute, and also the wild thing is how it makes you think about. Oh yeah, like I did that probably back then, back in the salad days.
It's very interesting. It's I have this baby, and she has no interest in being a baby. It is the funniest thing. When I and it's just like, oh, I'm seeing all of my own character defects in my child's beautiful eyes. But I was probably the same way. I was just like I couldn't wait to be a grown up. Like at 7, I wanted to be 40. Now I've achieved that, and so I'm working on new goals. But at like 7, I didn't want to do kids stuff. I didn't watch kids movies. It was just and I just see it in her. She's just like, no, I don't want to do a baby voice. She wants to have fun. She likes to have fun, but she's very serious girl.
I like that. Well, I see my furrowed brow on my son, and it's very funny. When Ada
Oh
said, "Oh,
man.
he has your face," I said, "Here, look at this," and I went. She was like, "Oh my god, it's exactly what he does." I said, "Well, hopefully he doesn't have the rumination problems that I've had in my life." But when you to your point about wanting to be an adult when younger, did as well, and still do. But I always wanted to do that stuff. I wanted to watch movies that were not in my age range. And my parents always had a policy that I greatly appreciate. If I could understand that I was allowed to watch it. Were your parents similar?
Isn't that great? And I think that's how it should be. And then that's what I'm very grateful to my parents because they gave me access. They could have said, "Oh, this is, watch this when you're older or something." They were like, "If you can understand it," I had the same thing. If you can understand it, it's okay. And
Yeah.
I don't think I abused that power like in a negative. It's like I didn't, go, okay, really? I'm gonna go rent I Spit on Your Grave. I saw it at the video store, and from the box cover I was like, I got the gist. I eventually checked it out later on, but I didn't it didn't it could it could go a certain way. You could get the wrong programming.
Yeah,
Thankfully
you
I
could, especially if you did rent "I Spit on Your Grave," which I did see. Let's say, well, not too young because there's no age that's the right age for that film.
there's no appropriate age for it. It's just of that genre of movie, it's bad. It's just
Yes,
like it's the only thing that it has going for it is the box cover, I think.
great box cover.
Post
Yeah, yeah, and that
But
and
like,
that that genre, which Tarantino calls revenge-o-matic.
yeah, Revenge-O-Matic. I finally, because having the kid, I had Quentin's book, but I hadn't had a chance to read it, and I just kind of finished it last week, and I was very Like I knew it was going to be cool. This is good, you know. I'm a fan of Quentin Tarantino. I knew it was going to be cool, but I was like, oh wow, Quentin Tarantino as film journalist coming in as everybody with an expectation that you've read Easy Riders, Raging Bulls. You
Right.
understand this is like coming in at a certain um
Literacy or
yeah,
yeah.
film literacy that I just appreciated, but also not being alienating at all. Like, you know, really bringing you in. And I was just like, ooh, you know, this plan. I know his new movie he's written a screenplay for is about a film critic. It's maybe a Pauline Kael type thing. And after reading Cinema Speculation, I'm sort of like, okay, this 10 films and I'm out. I want to, you know, retire. I want to write plays. I want to write books. I was like, yeah, Quentin, do
I
it
know
up.
when he first made that announcement, I was like, books? No, come on, your movies are so great. And then I loved the novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
That
which,
was super fun.
yeah,
And then Cinema Speculation, I was like, oh man, I would love, like, I hadn't read good, not to say that there's not good film criticism out there, because there is. Amy Nicholson is awesome and stuff, but I hadn't read anything um like that period of time has been covered to death, you know.
yeah.
Um and but it was a fresh take. I was like, wow, Quinn's going really hard on Paul Schrader. And he cops to that in the book. And then
Yeah.
he's not like talking behind Paul Schrader's back. He's like, hey, I'm gonna let you know. He even says in the book, like, I'm letting you know I'm going really hard on you in this book. And Paul Schrader's like, I deserve it for you know, certain things. I just and it might be old news to people because the book's been out for a while, but it's new news to me because I just finished it like maybe last week.
Well, that's
Um,
parent time. It's like you're way
yeah,
ahead of the curve because
exactly.
you just finished a book. I haven't finished the couple chapters of the movies that I really want to see because I hate spoilers. So I can't remember which movies, and I do have the tome right over there. But I loved it also because I related so much to the opening chapter, which I think is one of the most touching pieces that
It's
I've read in a
also
long
like
time.
the like you know, Quentin Tarantino's a guy, and maybe I just don't know, but it seems like he's been pretty mum about his personal life, and it was a glimpse into Quentin Tarantino's childhood that I didn't know about. And I was very moved by that chapter.
Yeah.
And I related too. Um, and yeah, it's really cool. Now me and my wife are reading out loud uh Bret Easton Ellis's last book, The Shards.
This is
Uh
you reading to the baby.
yeah, yeah, the baby's sometimes Tulu's awake, sometimes she's asleep. But both of us want to read it, so it was just like, here, let's just read this out loud, and it's good for the baby. And I'm only we're only 5 chapters into it, but so far I'm enjoying it. I like the conceit that it's Bret Easton Ellis is himself.
Oh, I didn't know that's what it
He,
was. Okay.
he's writing it as if this is a real thing that happened to him in, you know, high school in 1981 or whatever, and it's just a Bret Easton Ellis book, but it's from his like first person. I'm enjoying it so far. Again, I'm only 5 chapters in because I am on parent time.
Right, you're on parent time, and Bret Easton Ellis stuff. You can kind of get a gauge whether or not you're going to like the rest of the book by the opening.
Yes,
For yes, yeah,
exactly. And this one, I'm like, oh, I'm in. I'm in.
yeah.
I saw that he's adapting it for Amazon or something, and just 5 chapters in, I'm like, oh, this is very adaptable. And I went and checked, like, did somebody make a Spotify playlist of all the songs that are referenced in the book? And they did. And that's where, for spoilers, I started going through the playlist until I was like, nope, that song hasn't been mentioned yet in the book.
Oh, yeah. And I don't want
It's
to do that thing where you sort of predictively imagine what's going to be. That's why I don't like trailers because I see them and I go, okay, I think I know what's going to go on here. Because you and I both have probably seen thousands, if not tens of thousands, of trailers in our
What
lives.
happened to trailers, man? Because they used to be really fun, and you know, I'm even for, let's bring back the voiceover guy, but you know, if a trailer doesn't, sum up the entire movie, then it is a trailer where they're going to take, I don't know, some pop song, slow it down and pitch it in a weird way. And, it's just slap an A24 logo on it. And like there's an art to cutting trailers that I think has been lost. And, is it indicative of a bigger problem of the types of movies that are being made and released for adults, of which and that's the thing, there are plenty of movies out there. You just have to dig for them, and they're not playing in the theaters. They're premiering on Mubi, they're hiding on streaming services and stuff, but you can find them. My wife and I do this thing, and it pre-exists Tallulah, and we've kept it going, where we do Pretentious Movie Tuesday. And the rule is it has to be something she's never seen, I've never seen, that could be classified as pretentious. It has to look pretentious. Maybe it's a foreign film. Maybe it's a Kevin Smith movie. It's a wide. So we've seen a lot of great movies that way, and we've seen a lot of garbage.
Well, pick one of each category to enlighten the listeners.
Gosh, we've been doing it for so many years now that it's hard. So we watched there's a movie called PVT Chat, Private Chat. And it's a Julia Fox movie, low budget, indie, New York City, about cam girls. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, I've seen this, I've seen 80 different variations of this. I've seen the Lifetime movie version of this. And there was something about this movie that there was a little extra something going on, and I think maybe our expectations were very low, that it was like, hey, that's kind of good and it shouldn't get overlooked. And I think it was Dark Star Picks put it out, and I was just like, what, I'll buy that on Blu-ray, because I don't know if I'm gonna want to is it the best movie I've ever seen? No, it's not the best movie I've ever seen, but it was of that genre. It was a little bit better than I was expecting. And then a bad one, or like Nico 1988 was a PMT, which was that was a hard watch.
Is it the one that's a documentary and it has footage of her last tour?
I don't know if it's a narrative film about her last tour.
Right, gotcha.
And it's rough. It was better than I thought it was going to be. The worst PMT was, it's a tie, I think, between Tom of Finland, that movie, which is like, wow, what a great subject, what a bad movie, but also Mapplethorpe. And I don't like to trash other people's projects and stuff, and because I don't know who likes me and stuff, and I'm sorry if you made these movies, and maybe the next one will get me, but it was just like, it didn't work. It didn't work for us that night, however many years ago when we watched it. Maybe it could
have been the moon, it could have been the tacos, who knows. It didn't work for you. But
it didn't work that night.
I especially don't like bad movies that are made about real life people. I'm a little
it's the worst.
I'm a little wary of Spinning Gold, the Casablanca Records movie.
Well, the Bogart kids have been trying to get that made forever, with Justin Timberlake, I think, attached to play Neil Bogart. And, I think there's absolutely a story to tell about Neil Bogart and Casablanca Records. It's just, how do you be the biggest record label in the world for a couple of years, with acts as varied as Kiss and Parliament Funkadelic, and then entirely owning disco with Donna Summer and the Star Wars disco, and just burn through the money and go back. It's just fueled by cocaine, and the excesses of music. There's got to be a story there. I read the book that the guy wrote about Casablanca.
Larry something. That's a really good book. Yeah.
Great book. There's a story to be told there. And I think Neil Bogart is a really interesting music industry figure. But yeah, it's just, it's going to either be good or bad. And hopefully it's good. That's one I hope is good. But it's been in development since I moved to Los Angeles. I've been hearing.
When did you move to Los Angeles?
Like 2012. So
you were a New Yorker before that, am I right?
Yeah, I was a New Yorker.
And back to when you were 7 and wanted to be an adult. When you were 14, is that right? You did the public access show that then got picked up by MTV?
Yeah. So yeah, I was 14, started doing the show on public access, which is, what I always say about it is any lunatic that could fill out 2 pieces of paperwork can get a TV show if you have an address on the island of Manhattan. And I just did this thing, and it sort of became an instant cult success in Manhattan. And then it was sort of like, well, okay, do you want to take the show to MTV or do you want to take the show to Comedy Central? And Comedy Central this is a pre-South Park Comedy Central. And we took the show to MTV, and yeah, it was an incredibly strange 2 years of my life. From 14 to 14. I turned 15 years old like 3 months into doing it.
Wow.
So, and then it was done right around my 17th birthday.
What would you say would be the strangest part of that whole process, particularly going to MTV?
The strangest part of the whole process is looking back now, was the amount of creative control that was afforded to me as a child. And I can only, chalk it up to the fact that I did have like a complete vision. I did insist that the show still be filmed in my home. Because it was the joke in Wayne's World.
Right.
Like we gotta rebuild my apartment on a set. Now, 44-year-old me knows that would be a much more practical thing to do. Don't let people film in your house. It's a huge pain in the ass. And nobody believed it anyway. But we really did film in the bedroom, and they let me do the show that I wanted to do. That amount of creative control, and again, it was MTV. Everybody's making $1, and that I was able to retain ownership of it, and that's crazy. There weren't
crazy.
A lot of fights with MTV about you got to do this. It's because I think they realized like, oh, you're arguing with a teenager.
Right, and whatever the hell this kid
powerful, who's somehow powerful.
This is a powerful under 18 character, and he's nuts enough to have done this thing that has gotten our attention. It reminds me of when Frank Zappa talked about how the record industry was a lot better when there was a bunch of old guys with cigars who just went, I don't know, they seem to know something.
Maybe it's a hit. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a hit. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Here's $200. Put it on the radio.
Yeah, make the record.
Yeah, and it was an interesting time at MTV. MTV's unrecognizable now.
Describe for those not familiar with MTV, pre the last 15 years, and specifically the era that SQUIRT TV went on MTV, because I watched it, through the 80s, through all the different iterations. And but for instance, you would have Luscious Jackson on. What was the other kind of programming going on at the time?
Yeah. So it was post The Real World. Like MTV started out, a quick history lesson about MTV, I guess. But, Warner Amex Satellite Entertainment realized, hey, if we just show these music videos, which are being made anyway, promotional clips, we might be able to sell some ads in between the music videos, and we'll program it like FM radio, like a rock station. And then, there's The Real World comes on the air, and they see an immediate spike in programming, like showing music videos over and over again doesn't get as much ratings as like a show. So they, so it's not too far after that. So they're still showing music videos. There's things like 120 minutes. There's things like Headbangers Ball. Yo MTV Raps is coming to an end. It is pre Total Request Live. It's a very strange time where like the hippest thing on MTV was like the Beastie Boys and Weezer.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I happened to fall into the center of that at a particular time. And it's really only like a period of like 2 years.
Right.
The state were kind of on their way
Oh,
out.
right. Yeah.
And I was on, I mean, they did the pilot episode of my MTV show, and I went to their last taping. They were on the public access show too. They're, and they were, they're exactly like 10 years older than me. So they were in their early 20s. I was 16, 17. Very, very odd time where like Beck's Odelay was the big thing to put on MTV. Post grunge, because Kurt Cobain had left us, and pre Britney Spears, pre Backstreet Boys, pre Carson Daly. I think MTV was in a real identity crisis at that point. Not like they are now. But
now they're just another channel for Viacom to funnel things onto. Like
they just, I mean, they have Drag Race and Jersey Shore, and Drag Race just as of this year they moved it from VH1. It's I don't know what to do with MTV personally. Like if you were to say to me like, hey Jake, run MTV, I'd be like, I don't think I want that job.
That'd be because it'd be a difficult job.
What to put on it. I know that shows have to be made at a certain budget level for it to be profitable.
Yeah,
I know it's sort of a marquee thing, and then they have, but it's I mean, I didn't want to. I sort of had a hard, fast rule after sort of like 2004. Like, I'm gonna try and not work for Viacom if I can. But when they come to you and they're like, "No, you're going to be a showrunner and an executive producer for this comedy show that we're giving you like $1 million an episode for," which is high for Comedy Central, I'll be like, I'll break my Viacom rule, and I did.
That's fair.
Yeah, that and but yeah, it's it was a really fun time. And at the same time that I'm doing this stuff, it's like you've got like I guess like the Jimmy the Cab Driver stuff that was going on with.
Is that also when Dennis Leary had those ads?
It's a little after. It's after Leary.
Okay.
It's like after Leary's interstitials. But like Clay Tarver was doing that stuff, and and then a little bit later, I think like Sharpling and Worcester, Tom Sharpling and John Worcester start writing promos for them. Very, odd time at MTV, where they thought, yeah, this is a good bet. Let's let this 16-year-old host a show out of his bedroom and talk to Adam Sandler.
And after SQUIRT TV ended, and also, how did it end? Did they just say, "Look, it's not," or we're changing the look of the thing or the ratings or something? Because I know the state got.
I didn't. I fell into youthful indiscretions, and they were ready to go, and I was in West Palm Beach, Florida, taking care of a problem.
The skateboarding got too out of control.
Yeah, my skateboarding got out of control.
Tendinitis. It's a warning, kids. Tendinitis can happen. So you can do the half pipe, do all that stuff, but just be careful.
Well, like the movie Kids, like that is part documentary, and I couldn't skateboard, but I could do the substances. So,
sure.
So I took that. So then by the time I'm like 17, I'm like, oh no, I've ruined my entire career. This is, it's lightning in a bottle. And then, the Upright Citizens Brigade moved from Chicago to New York. And the way I always say is like, they came to town and they were like, hi, we're the UCB. We're going to get our own TV show. We're going to start teaching classes.
This is when they were doing the door-to-door thing, right? They would knock on the door, tell people that.
Yeah, then we're going to open up our own theater and school. And New York City just went, yeah, okay, that sounds great. Because already, there was this sort of like burgeoning alt comedy scene happening at what would eventually become Luna Lounge. Started at Rebar. But that's where it was just like, Marin, Todd Barry, Sarah Silverman, guys people have forgotten about, like Ross Broccoli, Carrie Prusa, uh, and like Showalter and Michael Ian Black and all, Luna Lounge. And I was there every week. So was Tom Sharpling, and we didn't know each other yet. But
Okay.
everyone
Yeah.
was congregating at this sort of Monday night comedy show, and then the UCB came and blew that. That show was still going on, but they said more of this and
Yeah.
Rob and Del Close and all of this stuff. And I got real lucky because that became sort of like college for me.
Did you find a kind of as you said, oh no, I've blown it. I've screwed up my one chance. How was the journey? Not to use a word that we kind of don't want to use, but what was the path like from that feeling to like, oh, okay, wait, there's another option here. There's other things in the future that I could do, which I imagine was kind of difficult for a 17, 18-year-old.
Yeah, it was like SQUIRT TV was like me and like my buddy Frankie, who passed away last year, which is still baffling to me.
I'm
But what
sorry.
happened with UC? Yeah, I'm sorry. It's terrible. It's just terrible. He completed a film. He co-directed a film called Not for Nothing, that they shot in Philadelphia, an independent film, which is doing the festivals right now. So I haven't seen it yet. I'm dying to see it. But I talked to him just a couple months before he passed, and it's just one of those horrible things. But going back to what it was like at 17, 18 years old, what I found with UCB and why I'm sort of forever great. And this is this is not reflective of what UCB is now. I don't know what it is now. And
They're a catering
it's
company,
changed.
actually.
Yeah, I joke. I think they broke off from Nexium. But what happened with me is I found a bunch of people who are my age and close to my age that, oh my gosh, they want to do this kind of stuff too. I found friends, a peer group, people that wanted to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning and like figure out, how to do a sketch show. I was,
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of improv at UCB. I was certainly sort of one of the forces there that said the improv is great. I respect it as an art form. I totally get it. It's an art form. But what if we took some of the improv and we recorded it and then maybe we wrote it down and then tried to make it better? And I directed a lot of shows at UCB, and that was sort of my driving force, was like, I want to do that. And it was incredible to find that there was anybody my age that was on the same wavelength. And that's where I say I got lucky twice. Once with having a TV show on MTV when you're 17, and the second time I got lucky is being at the UCB on the ground floor when it was truly just like 100 people who all now do this for a living.
Right.
Some of them are enormously successful, but we're all working. Nobody really had to get a day job of this sort of like 100 that I'm thinking of. And the cool thing about it is that we're all still friendly with each other. There's no bitterness. There's no, I don't like that person. It's like, it's really nice. It's really nice. Like I just texted a guy earlier today who was in my first improv class, and I was just like, you going to Sparks and They Might Be Giants? And he's like, I want to go. And I said, yeah, you'll go with me. I'll take you to Sparks and They Might Be Giants.
That's lovely.
And and he lives down the street too. And we were in a class together in 1998, 1999 on 22nd Street, learning improv for the first time. And I have to thank Adam McKay, who, at that time was just a writer on Saturday Night Live. and, hanging out with him, who I met through UCB. And he said, you're funny. Who's your improv teacher? And I said, I don't have an improv teacher. And he says, that's ridiculous, man. You got to go sign up for a class with like Armando Diaz tomorrow. And I dropped off a check the next day to John Ross Bowie, who was working in the office, and started that journey. Because it was weird, because I was like, I'd had this thing and stuff, but I didn't know anything about this. UCB at that time were like, listen, we can't teach you how to be funny, right? If you're a funny person, if you have some talent, if you're a funny person, we can help you there. We can give you some tools.
Sure.
But we can't teach you how to be funny. They're very upfront about that. And boy, they sure gave me some tools.
So when you said that you started writing the stuff down or developing and honing some of the improvs, which that's like a thing that a lot of people do, especially like I guess like Adam McKay's films, right? Like if they have an improv thing, or even Cassavetes would do that. The little improv things, and then
exactly. Like if anybody's, and it's not Adam's, like Adam is the greatest, and we talk pretty frequently actually, and he's terrific. But if anybody's wondering why comedies are now 2 hours and 20 minutes long, it isn't Adam McKay's fault, right? And Judd Apatow gets a lot of flack for this. But what Adam was able to do with Anchorman is, Adam's one of the best improvisers in the world, and Will Ferrell not so bad himself. So when they shot Anchorman, their first feature, they shot so much that they were able to cut together an entire different movie. And I think there's a DVD of it. Like they had to cut out so much. And Adam was like, let's, would run the camera and say this, like just toss out stuff. And that style of sort of filmmaking and comedy is sort of become how they make these comedies now. And I don't think everyone should do it. It's an art that some people are excellent at, and they're trained in it. And, and especially with the advent of nobody's shooting on film anymore. So you could, let it, what's it cost you, as long as you're making your days. But I think there's a certain point where improv starts to hurt, and it is sort of like, not everybody's fucking Cassavetes or McKay.
Right. Yeah. And also that there has to be a strict self-editing process with it.
And have a story and like, we still need a beginning and a middle and an end, you know what I mean? And I see movies sometimes where I'm like, okay, this movie's ended 3 times. Or, And I'm starting to see a pendulum switch back to the John Waters school of thought, which is no comedy should be over 90 minutes long. And, that's a hard and fast rule that I believe in.
It's like with the Ramones, right? They had kind of a rule, or Johnny had a rule that nothing should be over 3 minutes. I think 2 minutes, 45 seconds or something. Actually, I might be also conflating that with Guy Stevens.
Iggy Pop also, like, I think had a word count in his song, right? Yeah, it's, but yeah, it's or the KLF, and their rules for making there are these rules and they work. And yes, rules are meant to be broken. My question is though sometimes but should you the person, like,
are you the person to break the rules, or maybe
the person to break these rules? Because no, but yeah, in terms of the transition at 18 years old, like, boy, did I get lucky to land, have such a soft landing into this world of UCB and Saturday Night Live. And, it really, that is, I think, because while SQUIRT TV was amazing, and I'm very proud of it, and and nobody else could have done it but me. At the same time, it could have been a fluke if I didn't,
Take
hone the
that lucky
craft.
break and then actually
Yeah,
make it something
like
else.
that. The lucky break was MTV, and the fact that like I loved They Might Be Giants, or I loved the Beastie Boys, and or Sonic Youth, and they would call me and say, we like your show and we live down the street, do you want to hang out? That's crazy. And that's been my life, just even before SQUIRT TV. It's just like I wrote John Waters a letter when I was 7, and he called me,
Wow.
and I had the occasion to run into him as a grown-up, and he always remembers, like, it's just who I am, how I've always been. I don't know. I'm real comfortable talking to people. They and the way I approach people, they seem to want to respond. It's a very nice thing.
I think it's something to do with it's purely about your interest in the work. Really, and you like the characters and you like the falderall. Like you and I both share an obsession with RSO Records.
Yeah, which is a strange one. Yeah.
Yes, that's how I think the first thing I was like, I got to get in touch with Jake, because you were posting, I don't know, 8 tracks of Times Square and various things. Like I knew of your work, but then on Instagram, I was like, we have a lot of things in common. We got to get in touch. So, well, of course, right behind me, the Sgt. Pepper authorized something or other book I had to have on display.
I think I got over here.
That's what I thought.
Like,
yeah.
There's a Sgt. Pepper like roadshow program, and then there's Grease 2 novelizations, and then my favorite, the novelization to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the movie.
I didn't know that there was a novelization.
It's the funniest thing, because like the end of the movie, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, it's got everybody from Minnie Riperton to the Paley brothers to the
Leif Garrett and Dame Edna.
Yeah. Right. So the last like 6 pages of the novelization of the Sgt. Pepper movie book, like clearly there's a word count that this author was on, and it's just like, and everyone was there, and it just lists everybody. It's like Little Richard, Leif Garrett. It literally is just like, I'll get it.
Perfect.
Because it's so funny. It's just it just starts to become a list. Yeah, there. Chuck Berry, Judy Collins, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Joe Cocker, Booker T and the MGs, The Coasters, Pat Boone, and it goes on. 2,
wow.
3, so many people are there, until Hart, Kiss, Bob Seger, and Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees. But it's just pages of just musicians' names.
And pages of names that I don't think actually appear in that end sequence. Perhaps they did get
it's got to be a list of 500 musical artists.
I wonder if
Lawrence Welk, Harry Belafonte, Muddy Waters. Some of these people were dead then. Miles Davis, Ethel Merman. I mean, it is just like, your book's got to be 190 pages, and the guy sort of ran out of steam writing the novelization. So it cracks me up.
He just scanned his record collection. He was like, okay, this is what we do then.
And he had a big record collection, because it's like,
diverse taste.
One of those paperbacks.
You mentioned
7 pages of names.
Yeah. I wonder if that's the total list of who got the engraved invitations, that some maybe came and some maybe didn't.
Oh, that's. Could you imagine Miles Davis like getting an invite from? I feel like Alan Carr somehow involved in? No, probably not.
No, I don't think so. It was just Stigwood and
Bill
Anthony
Oakes or something. Robert
Bill
Stigwood
Oakes.
is getting Bill Oakes. Bill Oakes. Miles Davis will be like, they want me to do what now? Show up to the Universal lot with fucking Sha-na-na? I'm not doing that.
I'm not going to dance. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Literally. No, Miles Davis does not appear in the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band movie that does feature Alice Cooper and robots that sing She's Leaving Home.
Yeah. When did you first see Sgt. Pepper? And maybe, I'd like to do
I don't remember. So I had a tape of like dad had a friend who worked at a video store, and I kept renting the same things over and over again. And like on SLP mode, I think the tape had the Sergeant Pepper movie, the Blues Brothers, and then Blondie's Eat to the Beat music video.
One of the
Album.
first video albums, if not the first video
Yeah,
album.
exactly. It's like it had to fill out the time. And so I had an obsession with that movie and Xanadu. Like, when you go to therapy and the therapist tells you to think of like, a calm place, go to that calm place in your mind, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a white void or it's a cave or it's the ocean or something. I've done that in therapy. And for me, it is being on the floor of my childhood apartment with our top loader RCA Selectavision VCR. Like that's the happiest place I can imagine.
Sure.
Like in a therapeutic way. And Xanadu and Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the movie, were, in the rotation of me as a little kid. I think it's got to be, I had to be 6 or 5. We got our first VCR like 83, 84. So I was 5 or 6. And
yeah, we're roughly the same age. I'm 47. So similar thing with that. I mean, I even remember when Back to the Future came out on tape, I was more excited about getting the Sergeant Pepper thing because I think I saw it on local UHF station 38, but my parents had gotten me the wrong record for Christmas when I was like 4 or 5, and they got me the Bee Gees one, and I already loved the Bee Gees, so I was like, what's this? And then I had to get it as soon as I could possibly watch it.
I think that's how a lot of copies of, because they're still very much around today. If you want a copy of the Sergeant Pepper soundtrack sealed, just simply pop on Discogs. They ship like millions of them, and the movie was a gigantic flop. So they're
around.
Recently found, they're around. I found one on colored vinyl.
Oh wow!
That I didn't know existed, but it's got A&M record labels. It was like a UK issue.
Oh wow!
But I bought it because I'm a lunatic.
Well, look, I can't pass judgment because I have the cassette. I don't have the 8-track. I bet you have the 8-track.
I do. I have the 8-track. My favorite thing that I have though is the Pickwick Sound-Alike soundtrack.
Ooh, that's a gem.
Which is just, the budget, like if you talk about getting the wrong record, it's the budget session musicians version of the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton's versions of the Beatles. Like it is a goofy sounding record. I think the prized possession. I had a buddy in here the other day who runs a cool DVD label called Fun City Editions.
Oh yeah, Jonathan.
Jonathan, yes. Jonathan was in my house the other day.
Let me just make a plug really quick for a Fun City Edition film that is underseen and is brilliant. Heartbreakers.
Heartbreakers, yeah. Did that come in my package? I don't know. I did a commentary track for Party Girl, which he put out.
Yeah.
And that's how I got to know Jonathan. He wanted to talk to me about another thing, which we could talk about next year when it comes out. But
it's fabulous.
But I did a historical commentary for Party Girl, but he was marveling at the prized possession, which was a $6 eBay purchase, but is a New York City subway poster for Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Starts Friday at the Rivoli, and theaters in Long Island, and it's a giant poster hanging in my place.
That's beautiful. I have my eyes on this moment by moment subway poster that I'm going to. I'm going to put it, I think, above the bed.
Yeah.
I think that's where it belongs because it's romance.
Yeah, a moment by moment poster above the bed. That's that's sexy. I like
it's real sexy. Bringing someone new over, they'll be like, "Oh, he really is into this. Yeah, he's going to be good." the RSO obsession that we share, much like the Casablanca thing, it's fascinating in that it was the giant biggest thing, and it didn't fall apart as much as Stigwood got disinterested, it seems, and then it sort of fell about. I was wondering if you had ever seen, you know how that there's two movies or one movie that RSO financed but never released?
I mean, I know about Times Square, of course.
Right, which was legendarily
That came
butchered.
out.
No, that came out.
What
But there's another one, and I can't believe I can't remember the name of it because you're the only person I think on earth who would be interested in discussing it with me.
So there's two movies that they financed that never got released. This isn't actually, don't know this.
There's one. Okay, I'm going to look it up. And it was directed by, you know who that movie with Bill Murray that's black and white that didn't get released and Zach Galifianakis?
Nothing Lasts Forever by Tom Schiller, which is brilliant. And Harper Simon, my friend Harper Simon, saw it when he was young, and his dad is Paul Simon, and
I've heard of him. Yeah, he's doing. Yeah, he's coming up in the world. That Paul.
But Lorne Michaels had a deal at MGM in the early '80s after Saturday Night Live to produce movies, and they made Nothing Lasts Forever, which is an awesome film that is sort of lost. They've aired it on TCM, and you can find copies of it out there. But really a fun movie that has not been released yet. Never got a proper release.
Well, okay.
But Harper saw a screening of it when he was a kid, and he's like, "You got to find this movie." And then I did finally.
I really love stories about
film.
Well, first off, I got to say I love stories about when people go, "Oh, no, I saw the test screening of that." And you're like, "What?"
Yeah. Harper was like, "Yeah, no, there's this," because he was trying to explain it to me. This in the '90s. He was trying to explain it to me. He's like, "This movie, it's black and white," and I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
I didn't know anything about it until there was some article about the TCM airing or something like that, and it's still not on Blu-ray. It's still nowhere to be found, except the internet.
Rights issue. There's a lot of rights because it uses pastiche of older films and sort of in a way that Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid does, but it's a very, and like everybody has said, I'll participate in a bonus features, audio commentary, but one of these days it'll get a proper release.
And I think, from my knowledge, it's kind of a Brazil type of film where it's sort of a dystopian future. I'm not sure.
You have to get a license if you want to be an artist in New York, you need to apply for a license.
Oh, okay. And otherwise,
and then there's a bus trip to the moon. It's a hell of a movie.
Yeah, I mean, the story is an oft-told story. Here's the film. It's called Young Lust, a Robert Stigwood-produced Bruce Wagner-penned comedy featuring Fran Drescher and Dana Carvey, among others. That was apparently so much of a coked-up mess that this is someone's review, that it never saw the light of day, and the experience inspired Wagner to become the bard of Southern California nightmarishness thereafter. That's some user entry on some webpage. But Young Lust. And
that does sound familiar to me now that you mentioned it. And I think I know one other person who would probably know about it or have seen it. But like that, yes, now I remember.
I would really like to see that because I think Schiller directed it, is what I was trying to remember. And
and he did a bunch of cool music videos and stuff. I think he did Gary Weiss did the video for You Can Call Me Al. But yeah, Alan Moyle, Times Square. I guess the rarest thing that I have from RSO is my buddy Rodney runs a vintage store called Avalon Vintage. Great guy. And he's like, "I got something. You got to come down here and take a look at this." And I have
a guess as to what it is. I don't want to say, but we're going to go ahead, please.
What it is I got down there and what he presented to me was a mock-up of a Times Square one sheet that had come from, I mean, it's tactile, it's got stickers on it, and it's in a cardboard frame, and it says RSO on the back. It's written in like grease pencil, and my guess is that it came from a marketing meeting between RSO and Associated Film Distributions. The thing it's in great condition. and it's a mock-up for what the movie poster would be. How it survived and ended up in this guy's vintage store from two companies that have been out of business since 1980 and then came into my possession in 2017. I have no idea. And he said there were a couple other of them that like were other mock-ups. But that's sitting in my closet right now. And I actually attempted to return it to Alan Moore. I was like, "Do you want this?" And he's an interesting person. I've never I've never spoken to him. I've never met him, but his baby was mutilated.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Fever. What they wanted to do with Times Square, like Saturday Night Fever, that was a movie and it sold a lot of disco albums. So they wanted to do the same thing. Let's make a movie where we're going to do the same thing with New Wave. And it did not have the same effect that Saturday Night Fever had. But I love the movie. I love the movie
too, and you can see the bits, you can tell where things were chopped out of because the continuity.
Yeah, you can see where they cut it, but and I'll say this to Alan Moyle if you will ever listen, is that the soul of your movie and that you co-wrote with Jacob Brackman, the soul of it is still in there, which is what I said to Nancy Dowd about Ladies and Gentlemen, the Fabulous Stains. And I've had the extreme pleasure of actually sitting down with her and getting to know her over the years. It's like, I know, and it's hard, it's not all washed up, the movie you wrote. And the experience that you had making it was terrible, but the soul of it is still there. And look at what it inspired. Truly look at what you inspired. And over the years, Nancy Dowd, I think, who is awesome. And I don't know if she's in Canada right now or France, but doing whatever the fuck she wants. She's just a cool lady. But she started to appreciate, no, people have love for these movies.
Intense love.
I hope I get to tell Alan Moyle that about Times Square at one point.
You should just email him. I emailed him to see if he would participate in the movie club I did on Outrageous because he performs in that film. He acts in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was not interested at all.
No. I've reached out. I did hear back from his manager, and she was nice. She was just like, "Yeah, you can keep it." But thank you. It was very gracious. She was very gracious.
There is an interview with him. I can't remember on what episode. If I can think, I think maybe Pump Up the Volume. I'm not sure. But the Projection Booth podcast has a phone interview with him, and that's pretty interesting.
Yes, I checked that out, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. That was because that was another thing. I was rewatching Pump Up the Volume at a midnight screening I went to in Los Angeles that I think Bill Blankenship put together. And
Phil at the New Beverly, a big shout out to Phil.
Yeah, Phil's the greatest. And watching Pump Up the Volume again, I realized, wow, this had a huge impact on my life. This movie sort of helped form my personality.
Well, you were a self-starter with the public access thing, and now with the internets, the interwebs, and your podcast and the Patreon.
And all the years of radio I did, and it was just like, oh, this was an influential film on my brain. And Alan Moyle directed that, and that one holds up. So they all hold up. I think he doesn't hate that one the way he hates Times Square. I can only imagine the painful experience of those coked up lunatics, who are really trying to sell a soundtrack album, imposing their notes in 1979, 1980.
The most curious thing, though, is that Stigwood really wanted the lesbian stuff cut out, and he was gay, and he also, Moment by Moment is a film made by gay people, basically, but it's about a heterosexual relationship. But then again, Stigwood would never be photographed without a woman on his arm or a woman nearby.
Exactly. It was that, there was a lot of gay executives like Robert Stigwood, and it's no place for a straight white man to speak about, but a straight Jewish man to speak about, but like Seymour Stein, who just passed away,
Yeah.
God rest his soul. And I love his daughter Mandy very, very much. But his, he talks about it in his book. I think it was tough, and it was even tough for Jan Wenner. Who should do more acting. I don't know
I
why he
couldn't
hasn't.
agree with you more. Perfect. Oh, it's so great.
Perfect. That's just why has he done more acting?
As you can see, I'm a big Jim Bridges fan because the Mike's Murder soundtrack is there. I'm doing an epic movie club on Mike's Murder, which I think is one of the finest
Mike's
films.
Murder. I haven't watched that in years, and that's a Joe Jackson score, right?
Yeah, Joe Jackson score. The thing got partially replaced by John Barry, and over here
You've
I
got
have the Betamax, which
oh yeah,
sadly,
that's the Warner Brothers clamshell.
yeah,
You
I
have
had
a
to get.
reel-to-reel player back there?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It needs a little bit of servicing, and if it didn't make so much noise in the motor, I would have it running while taping because that's a good.
Yeah, look, yeah. It's those are expensive format.
Affectations.
Reel-to-reel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know it is an expensive format. I would have loved to have gotten one years ago. Although I want to get, like you see on eBay when you just look window shopping, the really gorgeous Pioneer ones that are sort of half the size, but they have the reels on the front. The kind of thing you'd see in Bottle Rocket, I believe, at James Caan's house when they do that party scene. Yeah.
I have it like the Nagra recorder and Blowout. Like those they're beautiful. It's beautiful machinery, but like I got no use for it. I love it, but it's really expensive, and what am I going to do with it?
Well, that's the thing. That's why I'm like, well, it's my backdrop now because this is great. This one, except I need to get the whatever controls the speed fixed because it's not
belts,
constant.
Probably, right? Yeah, it's probably belts, I imagine.
I need belts, yeah, and I'm not really good with tape. I mean, I can fix some stuff, but not that. So I'm gonna. And I know people said, "Oh, there's a place in LA," and then I'm like, "Yeah, I should do that." And then things like the pandemic happen.
And how many reel to reel, like I'll see, you can get a copy of Hunky Dory as released on reel to reel, and I bet it sounds great if you happen to catch it when it pops up on Discogs for $850.
Well, this is the problem. I like finding a whole bunch of blank reels or reels that have interesting things on them that were recorded by people at their home.
That's the greatest. Yeah.
It's the best. And I got a whole bunch of Muzak that's on these Maxell tapes. I also have a whole bunch of Army PSAs because sometimes on eBay you'll find a lot of something. Like I found a lot of U-matic tapes because yes, I have a U-matic player because I like really relevant, up-to-date machinery. I also have a video disc player as well, which was necessitated by the purchase of which was necessitated by the fact that Mick Fleetwood's The Visitor documentary, in which he goes to Africa, was only released on CED because I guess RCA thought this is the thing that's going to make people compel them to buy.
RCA Selectavision, the discs with the grooves.
Yeah, the ones that if you get a speck of dust on them, they will skip.
Yeah, I had a Laserdisc player when I was a kid. I saved up. I remember because it was just the only way you could get. I find it so funny now, and I'm starting to come to terms with it. I understand it, but it's like for years, you could not watch a movie in its original aspect ratio, and then all of a sudden, the last couple of years, like filmmakers started to shoot in 4:3 as a choice, and I was like, "What are you doing?" Now I get it. You're going for a certain aesthetic, and we're facing the reverse problem of like, oh man, these Law and Order episodes are in the wrong aspect ratio, or Seinfeld's chopped off
yeah, all stretched out and fucked up. Yeah well, though the Miami Vice box set, the original aspect ratio, which is great, one of my favorite shows of all time. But when speaking of Saturday Night Live, another favorite show of mine, when did you start working in that? You worked as a writer, right? And was that around the time that you were, or am I wrong?
They used to have this thing. Gosh, it was in the early. It was when Jimmy Fallon and Tina Fey were doing Update, and they used to have this thing. I was never a writer at Saturday Night Live.
Okay, my mistake.
I did write for the Tonight Show, and that was sort of recently. But
That's where I
I
was
contributed.
conflating. That's what I was conflating because
Yeah,
you had written me. We were going to do this ages ago, but you were sort of in the thick of things.
yeah, I was working on Fallon, but I used to write jokes for Weekend Update. This used to be a thing. I don't think they do it anymore, but there used to be a thing where they called them faxers. You could fax in jokes to Update, and they would it was over email, but if they used your joke, you got $100.
That's great.
And I got a bunch of jokes on Weekend Update. I was in my early 20s, and it was Jimmy had just started doing it with Tina Fey, and Jimmy said, "Hey, Jake, you need help with jokes. You want to send in jokes?" And I was thrilled. I still, I remember like the first joke that I got on, and unfortunately, it's a mean joke at the expense of Paris Hilton, and I have since apologized. But it was, for its time, it was a good joke.
What was the next step career wise after you at UCB and doing all that? Like when you mentioned, like I believe you've worked as a writer on a bunch of things, right?
Yeah. So after that, it's like then we start doing like Best Week Ever and I Love the 70s and I Love the 80s and being on those shows, which
Oh yes,
was bizarre because now they're sort of a show that's been rendered obsolete by BuzzFeed and the internet and stuff, but people really liked those shows.
yeah.
Then I had the funniest thing happen, which was as a bit, like I think we shot this to show at UCB. I had this idea of what if I did a show I sold this to MTV when I was 25. What if I did a show about me desperately trying to get my MTV show back? Only I'm 25 and I'm not as cute. And my friend Tom Giannis was like, that's actually a really good idea. Let's really do it. And we went into MTV with like a little bit of stuff that we had shot, and they bought it. And I was thrilled because it gave me a happy ending to the MTV story to do this like pilot that still exists, which people can see. And it has like Dave Grohl, Sarah Silverman, Moby, Fallon's in it. And it's very funny. It's sort of like it was heavily inspired by The British Office, fake documentary with me, and I'm desperately trying to get the show back. Now I knew it wasn't going to get picked up because they were also at the same time developing a thing called Laguna Beach, and
same plot, same kind of vibe, everything.
I just was like, look at me, look at those kids. What are they going to put on MTV? And it's so funny because there was this guy Adam DeVello who was like the executive that was put in charge of like babysitting me and Tom Giannis, who we didn't have much regard for, and we were driving him crazy. And he's like the producer of Selling Sunset now. And I'm like, yeah, good for him. And he was like, I have no problem with him, but like, I was delighted when Christine from Selling Sunset was like, oh, on some podcast being like, oh, Adam DeVello's blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. But yeah, it was really funny. Like my managers were really like upset that it didn't get picked up, and Tom was upset that it didn't get picked up. And I was like, what are you guys think? It's crazy they let us make this. This is crazy that we have this tape. And then it was just, writing on this here and there, like, Natasha Lyonne, UPN sitcom pilot that, and, finally I moved to Los Angeles and I write a script, and it's a good script. And somebody tells me, hey, Ben Stiller likes this and he wants to, direct it. And he wants to direct it and executive produce it. I'm like, really? And I didn't believe it until I was on Skype, pre-Zoom, Skype call with Ben Stiller. He's like, yeah, I really like this. I want to direct it. You want to take it out to the networks and stuff? So we did. And IFC bought it, and it didn't get made, but it was like the script that changed things for me. And then all of a sudden Wet Hot American Summer is a Netflix show, and Come Right on it, and Difficult People becomes a thing. And then it's just like, well, now you come right for this Netflix show. And now it's been all these years, and it's like, wait a second, I have like 3 Emmy nominations and a WGA award nomination, a couple of those, and I have a baby and a wife. Like, what the fuck happened? Like, and it just was like, I knew that it was like 2012. I was like, if I move to LA and you get something, something will get going. And, and now I'm at a new point of like, okay, I'm a dad. What do I want to do? Do I want to sit in a fucking writer's room right now? For a show that's not like my own, and like, craft some prestige TV show for a streamer that's not mine? Not really. It depends on the room. It depends on the people. It's like the Tonight Show. It was just like, that was like, wait a second, you're doing it over Zoom? Because of the pandemic, and like, I'll do this for a little bit. It won't like it's not gonna fuck up our friendship, right? And he's like, no, I have nothing to do with the writers. And I was like, great. So truly, it was super fun. And then I was just like, I don't want to do this every day anymore. Late night is a grind, and the people who have the ability to do that every day for years, like look, it's a little bit of golden handcuffs, very reliable paycheck. It doesn't pay as much as like running a show or narrative, but it's decent, and it's fun, but it is sort of like
hamster wheel.
Yeah, a little hamster wheel. And then it's funny because I'm friends with Jimmy, like real friends, like text each other, like, here's my baby, like that, and he just happens to have this job where he hosts the Tonight Show, but I didn't get the writing job through that at all. It was more the writing staff. It was like, well, and I think there's people who are better at writing the Tonight Show than me. And I was like, I want to have a baby. I can't do shit right now. And like,
yeah, it's hard to do that and be on that hamster wheel. It's like, there's a lot to deal with.
I had to get off the hamster.
Yeah, because and you don't want your jokes to be like, when your baby poos, like, it's just not exactly what they want. Maybe it's what. Maybe it's not what you want.
Like and the Tonight Show is sort of like, it's a very specific thing. It's super fun because you're in the center of show business for that day. So it'll be like, whoa, I came up with something earlier this morning and now Madonna is saying it. That's super cool.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's a certain type of writing. It's, monologue, desk piece stuff. And, I understand why people quit. Like James Corden, who for some reason people have a problem with. I don't have a problem with him. But I get it. He's like, this was an amazing opportunity. And now I want to go home to London, where I'm from, and raise my kids.
Yeah, and I would also like to drive my car without having to sing with all these fucking people all the time.
Yeah, with all these fucking fucking Adele in the backseat.
I know, Paul McCartney blowing up my shit.
The Paul McCartney one was good though.
That was a great
special thing that they did.
Yeah,
it was just fucking cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Well, he made the most of it. Now he's also, that's a key thing too. Is this fun anymore? Do I like doing this anymore? That's a good thing to keep in mind.
That was it. It was just like it might be fun in the future again too. And like, I think they would have me back, which is nice. Is like, but like I was like, oh, this is getting to be not fun.
And it's better to step or dip out, as they say, or step out when in these moments, because then you still have a good relationship with the people. Because inevitably, if you're unhappy, it's still.
I will say this too, like the Tonight Show is like one of the nicest groups of people I've ever worked with. Like, super nice. Every single person was crazy, and writers come and go there. There's a bunch of people, core group, that have been there since the beginning. And every single person, whether they were just passing through or they'd been there for years, it's like one of the nicest groups of people I've ever had the chance to work with. Like, I was sort of like shocked. I was like, oh wow, nobody's in competition with each
Yeah.
other here. You're in competition with yourself, which is and that was the environment that I experienced. It was really, it's really special. It was special, and it's fun to say, oh shit, I worked on the Tonight Show,
It's really
and
good. And also
it's
for the accrued resume that you have, which is something interesting that people should keep in mind if they want to be in the entertainment, the business, that the thing that you started out with, or maybe you got initial attention for, it might not be the thing that you're doing later on, but there's all these other things that are just as great.
I
And
have
like,
it's just like I have this like these fans, and I you know don't know always where they know me from.
yeah,
Some people know me because like, oh, you wrote for Marvel's Runaways. And I'm like, yes, I wrote an episode of Marvel's Runaways. Why do you know this? You're a weird comic book person. Okay, that's cool. And some people just know me as I was that guy who's on I Love the 70s. Some people know me as just somebody from The Best Show with Tom Sharpling.
yeah,
Some people know me as a SQUIRT TV guy. It was a very satisfying day for me when I was sitting in a writer's room and they were like, you did what when you were a kid? Like that was, an interesting conversation. Yeah. I've written on, and produced, writing and producing, and then you end up doing music videos and stuff. And right now my criteria for what I will do is this is going to be fun. And if it's not going to be fun, is this like so financially interesting that I can't say no, because I now have a family, like literal mouths to feed.
yes, exactly.
But
Yeah, I think that's the key. If it's not going to be
if you
the
can
super
find
fun, I hope it's super lucrative.
if you can find two at the same time, you're in really good shape. Not always the case, but I have had moments in my career, which is, at least 25 plus years of doing this at this point, where I'm like, shit, I'm getting paid really well and I'm having a lot of fun. And that's the greatest.
Yeah, and I'm
Um,
sure that there's been up and down times where. How do you handle those anxieties? And also, you've not skateboarded since that initial time
oh
when you were
no,
younger.
no, no, no. No, the sobriety is strong. We're into decades now.
Yeah,
June, yeah, June 26th. I no, nothing. I don't smoke pot. I'm not California sober. It just doesn't work for me. It's I feel like I talked about it on Mark Maron because he wanted to
he
get
likes
into the nitty.
that's a topic that sometimes comes up on his show. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're both secret society people and stuff, so I get it, but where I'm at, how do I deal with the times? It's interesting because as I've gotten older, and there's been the peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys, it's getting less stressful because I know. Well, hold on a second. I've seen this movie before. Like, all I have to do is make a thing or write a thing, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then the heat goes up again, and and when those moments happen, it's just, luck is preparation meets opportunity, and just keep going. So I will say it has been a while since I have been like, oh man, what am I gonna do? It's been a while. Not that I'm like comfortable. I certainly have goals. There's things I want to do. There's things I want to achieve. I'm not a millionaire. I gotta hustle and stuff. I gotta work. And even if I was, say, a multimillionaire, I still think I'd want to do stuff. It's just, but the peaks and valleys at this point, it's just like I had so many peaks and valleys since I was when you had your first canceled TV show when you're 17 years old. You
Yeah.
get pretty used to it. Like, yeah, I told you a story. Ben Stiller, that didn't go. I wrote it came as close to a show getting picked up to series as a show can get. I wrote 3 extra scripts, I was writing 2 budget and they didn't pick it up. And I truly was upset for 20 minutes because it was like, okay, you have your own TV series that you created today. Did you have that yesterday? No. So what are you going to do?
That's a really good
Super
way to
upset?
look at it, because I think people at any age get really hung up on the thing that it's like the putting your eggs all in one basket or putting your baskets in one egg. It's you can attach too much significance to too much to something because it seems like a great idea and you
Oh
can see
yeah.
how it could be a great idea, but then they don't.
I figured it out, like the external validation thing. Like I had a lot going on, a lot of good stuff, a lot of good outside stuff. And then I was like, hold on a second. I'm very lonely. This means nothing if I don't have somebody to share this with,
Mm-hmm.
all those things, you know, I'm 44 at this point. It's like, if you don't have that figured out sort of by a certain, I just think everything happens at exactly the moment that it's supposed to happen.
Yeah. And
Um,
speaking of moments that are
and
supposed to happen, you said you had a hard out at 90 minutes. Is that
yeah, I gotta run. And
okay? Well, I'd
it's
love to.
just it's
Oh, go ahead.
it's
Sorry.
real easy. I'll say this. It's real easy for me, there will be peaks, there will be valleys, but at any point I can write a fucking memoir.
That's true. And
And
also, I really like what you said about, okay, things are a little down right now. I can make a thing. I can write a thing. A lot of times we can
yeah,
forget
that's
that we have the agency to put something into motion. It's not just like, gee, I sure hope they call me, or I sure hope that someone thinks of me for this. It's self generation, which is something you've
no,
been doing forever.
you can't do that. Like, yeah, and as people are like obsessed with like I need an agent, I'm like, agents are a tool. They can only help you so much. A lot of time an agent's like, hey, this person, right? Well, their thing got picked up. Can you email them and tell and then you're like, what am I paying? And then sometimes there's been moments where agents have straight up like, I'd be like, wow, didn't know about this opportunity, wouldn't have gotten it without you, thank you for setting up the meeting. Like,
Yeah.
you know
It's
but
not the one thing. It's not the silver. There's no silver bullets.
yeah, no, there's no silver bullets. Like, when somebody's like, asking me, a younger person usually, like, how do I get involved with comedy or doing what you do, I say make stuff,
Yeah.
just make stuff. And that it could be a script, it could be what I did that was unique way back in 1994. So many people are doing today, and we have such better technology and better tools. So, it's exciting for me because it's like I am used to doing it this way since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um, Now I'm sort of like, hey, what do I want to do with all these new tools and with all these people I know? Like, it's a hell of a Rolodex, but I don't want to waste anyone's time unless I'm like, oh, I got a thing.
Like a
I
really
really
good
got
thing.
an
Yeah.
idea.
Just don't
A really good thing.
scattershot, because there's a lot of things that have a lot of people like that in it that you're like, this thing shouldn't have been made. Why was this
Yeah,
made? They
exactly.
must have known the guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's 2023 for me has been about my daughter, and I'm so grateful to be in a position. There's going to be a writer strike in days and all that stuff, but like I'm grateful to be in a position where I could carve out time to to really just spend some time being a dad. And um and my phone is open. I am starting to, as now, she was born in January, it's April, I have start to work on things again. uh
Well,
and
first 3 months,
entertain
it's
the
kind of
idea.
impossible. You're just lucky that you eat, shower, and
Exactly.
shave.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I've done those things, but yeah, I listen, man, it's been a pleasure. This has been a pleasure to
Same here. I love it.
chat.
I'd love to do it again sometime and also have you on a movie club. Oh, and before we go, what I was going to guess as to what the really rare item was, I once had this too, but gave it to someone and tried to get it back, and they said, "Oh, it fell down and was broken." Do you remember those things at the carnival where they would have like a Led Zeppelin mirror or Rush?
Yeah, the Coke mirrors. Yeah.
Yes, there was a Times Square one.
No fucking way.
I can't tell you how frustrating it is to think I had that in my house for a week and I gave it to someone. Why did I do that? And it's broken, supposedly.
I that's so bizarre because I've always wondered, those things never seem to be like officially licensed or whatever. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but that like I've never in my life seen or even heard of that. And
I've searched and searched for a replacement. I don't know. I wish I even had a photo of it, but alas, we must go. And this has been a blast. Thank you, Jake.
I have a print of the movie dubbed in Italian, a 35mm print of Times Square, but it's dubbed in Italian.
Yeah, I was going to say that makes it difficult to screen.
But we want to watch it. Me and my friend Mark Edward Hoyk, who's also a fan.
Oh, yes, the gentleman who just did the episode with Gala on Video Archives about The Visitor.
Yeah. Yes, he is. He's an amazing cinephile, writer, talent, and a brilliant projectionist too.
And you know what? Before we go, please tell everyone about the name of your podcast, where they can get it. I'll have the episode notes. I mean, the links in the episode notes, rather. But please.
So there's two things. One is Jake Fogelnest free episodes. And it's just a podcast. And I'll be honest with you, it's the most important cultural news affairs program that's out there today. It's never topical. It's just whatever. It's essentially SQUIRT TV. That's essentially what it is. And then if you like it, you can get it as a TV show on a Patreon by signing up at www.jake.army. And there's all kinds of bonus podcasts and stuff attached to that. It's been going since I started it during the pandemic. And it was sort of like something to do. Because I was also writing a script that was based on IP, one of those jobs, it was like,
yeah,
oh, I like this IP. And if I don't take this, somebody's going to do it. So I might as well do it.
Yeah.
I was doing that, and it was the pandemic. It was like I was sent to script like March 15th. It was like the day of lockdown.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
Handed that in. Wrote something else for FX. And then I was just like, I'm just gonna start fucking podcast again. Oh, and I own my old show. I should probably make that available to people.
That's right. Yeah, that would be good.
So you can get it. www.jake.com.
So fans of SQUIRT TV, go over there now. Fans of Jake, over there now. And Jake, I look forward to talking to you again. This has been a delight.
You got it, man. Super fun.